是粤港澳大湾区的重要核心引擎，是一个正在成长的海洋城市，正在加紧发挥创新的作用，推动中国蓝色经济的发展。为推动海洋经济高质量发展，促进海洋经济国际合作，2020中国海洋经济博览会将于2020年10月15日至18日在深圳会展中心举办。2020国际海洋经济合作发展论坛作为海博会宏观论坛，将聚焦海洋经济最具潜力和价值的细分领域，着重探讨新冠疫情背景下海洋经济发展的变化和机遇，以充分开发蓝色经济的潜力，突破疫情带来的发展瓶颈。论坛还将推动全球海洋科技前沿技术交流，通过科技赋能和商业创新，推动中国和世界海洋产业和经济发展，为深圳乃至粤港澳大湾区构建与世界对话的互动平台，探讨海洋产业发展对经济、社会和城市发展的重要影响及对策，描绘世界蓝色经济的新愿景、新未来。2020中国海洋经济博览会国际海洋经济合作发展论坛后疫情时。
喂。
Now we'd like to switch the background screen to our panelist introduction.
好，早上好，各位。
Good morning, everyone.
今天呢，我们
Today we feel so honored to get panelists online, offline. Two panelists are going to pretend it. This meeting online, and now you can see 4 the others are going to participate on site with us. And now you can see one is Mr. Yu Ya, who is the vice president from China International Marine Container Group. The other is Mr. Zhou, who is a partner of the China headquarters of the Dentons law firm.
Now let's also say hello to our online speakers. They are first Marisa Zhou. Hi, Marisa. Yes, so
hello.
Marisa is CEO Impact from Credit Suisse, and also we will have Paul Holthus. Hi, Paul.
Hi, hello. Happy to be here.
Yes, so Paul is the CEO and the founder of World Ocean Council. 我呢是环球时报英文版的冯宇。今天我们这一场主持的那个议题是负责任的态度，用一种负责任的方式。
So we'd like to use a responsible way to invest in the ocean area. So today, I would like to kick off with several data. The first set of data is in China. You can see that in 2019, according to the National Natural Resources, you see that the area value of the marine economy is like 29 trillion RMB, and the other is according to OECD. Among all those economies, and the 2.5 to 3 trillion economic value has been created in the marine areas and around the world. And the seventh largest economy is blue economy. The total size is reached 20 trillion US dollar. This is definitely a very big cake. This cake is not only a large one, and also the blue economy has mentioned, and also the related industry has enjoyed a super fast speed, and it's almost like 2 times faster than other economies around the world. So all those things just result in the increasing interest in this industry. But the fact is, it's not always optimistic one.
因为两种因素的缺失导致了这个领
It has
域的
been
投资呢，我们说它是
contributed by 2 factors.
低洼吧
And people believe that this is underinvested areas.
一个呢可能
And
就是
you
我
can
们所谓
see
的
those 2 factors are as follows. One
经济
is
行业里
the
面的知识 expertise，
we lack a lot of expertise in this industry.
第二个
The
缺乏
second thing
呢
is
就是说，它
we lack
对这个
the sustainable investment
这个
understanding, and also the project
要有 investment
has
grade project。
not so many in these
那么
parts.
今天
So that's
但
why
是呢就有一点是比较
we
幸
are
运的，
facing
就
the
是说
bleak pictures, but there's one thing we feel so grateful and lucky is that the interest for investment in this industry has been picking up, especially for our works of life and our home and abroad, and whether in this industry or outside this industry, even from academia and also the legal industry, we have shown great interest and also pay a lot of attention and efforts. Today we're going to talk about whatever industry we can start with, and also what is the suggestion from a lot of different enterprises to focus on this part, and also whether it's like SME or the big enterprises, how to have those in-depth merging in this part so that we can go larger and wider.
接下来我们就进入那个
let's move on
那个议题的那个第一位嘉宾。
discussion. Let's start it with the first panelist. Would you like to kick off with Madam Marisa Zhou? Would you like to share with us first?
可以那个啊。
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Shall I begin?
We can hear you. Yes, you can start.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests. It is my pleasure to be here this morning and evening for some of us. I wanted to start by perhaps framing how Credit Suisse has looked at the blue economy and how we think about the opportunity set for investing in the blue economy. If we move to the first slide, one of the things that we certainly know is that the oceans are absolutely critical to planetary health. They basically give us every second breath in terms of oxygen, and they mitigate so much of the carbon emissions that are in the air. Yet, despite all of the good things that the oceans do, we are facing a very, very fragile moment. We've faced some of the warmest ocean temperatures on record, and we're starting to see those ocean warmings affect our assets in increased storm activity. The statistic that is most recent is that there were more than $115 billion weather disasters in the last decade, and that is multiplying and intensifying every year. We also know that the plastic waste problem increasingly is showing up on our oceans and affecting our fish and even human health as we consume fish which have plastics and they come into our systems. We also know that it is critically important, the oceans, as a food source. They provide about a quarter of the world's single protein use for most nations. And we have about a quarter of the world, or nearly 1 billion people that rely on the oceans for their livelihoods. So when we think about all these statistics, it's critical that we begin to mobilize capital to this sector. And yet, if we look at the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, it may surprise you with all these statistics that it is the least invested from a private capital point of view of all the SDGs. And when we found this statistic at Credit Suisse, we were very shocked. And we asked ourselves, why is that? Why is there so little capital that it's been invested in this space? And if you look to the next slide, we decided to try to do a bit of research to find out what is behind that. And what our research told us through this initiative that we called Investors and the Blue Economy, when we polled the large institutional investors, so those who have very large pools of capital to contribute, what we ultimately found is that it's not a lack of desire, it is absolutely a lack of investable opportunities that present themselves in a format and in a shape that speaks to the investment community. That's the fundamental issue. And so we at Credit Suisse decided that we would try to do something about that. So if we move to the next slide, we wanted to take a look at opportunities for different types of investors to participate in this wonderful blue economy. And in some cases, we have investors that are looking for maybe a substitute for cash. So what could they do with your cash, your very safe pool of capital? In that respect, we created something called the Blue Economy Note, where we teamed up with the World Bank, and the World Bank is a AAA rated institution, so it is as safe as one can get from a partner point of view. And we created an opportunity for our investors to have something where their funds would be protected so that you couldn't lose your cash, but the proceeds of that investment are going to World Bank projects that help protect the oceans. Things like waste infrastructure so that you don't have effluent going into the waterways, or planting mangroves, which are a natural capital solution for coastal barrier protection, and so on. But this is one opportunity for one class of investors that's looking for perhaps a safety and maybe a lower rate of return. We've also begun to work on very large liquid opportunities. This would be in the capital markets where we can mobilize billions. And there we're working on something called the blue bond principles, which are very much consistent with the green bond market today. Many of you must be familiar with that. That is about $1 trillion US market. And those same principles that we use in green bonds have every opportunity to be applied for blue causes. So we're at work creating a set of principles that the global capital markets network can utilize to guide them into blue investments. And then finally, we are very, very keen on partnerships. We think collaboration is critical in this space. And in that respect, we teamed up with a partner, Rockefeller Asset Management, and a charitable organization called the Ocean Fund, to create an investment opportunity which we call Ocean Engagement, where we will work with companies to help them become better stewards in return for us investing in those companies. And the idea behind this engagement is that if we work with companies to make them better ocean stewards, we will create good value for those companies because they will attract new customers and they will attract the investment community. So therefore, it's a win for everybody. So these are some of the innovations that are taking place from a financial structure point of view to help close that funding gap. If I turn to the next page and we think about possible areas for investment, I participate in a panel that is focused on the sustainable ocean economy. And perhaps just to light a few sparks for you, we came out with a number of opportunities to think about as sectors to participate in, which show great promise. The sustainable fisheries and seafood arena, there's enormous amount of work going on in this space, both to create more sustainable areas for fish to be farmed. And today there are many, many technologies now at work that can make farmed fish much more productive and sustainable and resist disease, and also to create new innovations around new types of seafood, like perhaps seafood that is cultivated from stem cells of fish. There's offshore energy, there's the opportunity for clean marine transport, and circular economy principles where we continue to recycle goods and services in the economy instead of producing them and throwing them away. And when we think about the returns that are associated with investing in the ocean, I think it's absolutely important to understand that we do not have to sacrifice returns as investors We have case study after case study that shows if you invest in ocean protection, in conservation, and in ocean opportunities, those returns can be very, very robust and also very cost effective. I'll touch on two topics very quickly. One is mangroves. As I pointed out a little earlier, mangroves are a coastal barrier protection to help protect against storms. And what we find is they are about 5 times more cost effective than man-made structures in many cases. They serve as better protection. They don't degrade if a storm activity hits, but they also contribute to the ocean ecosystem because they serve as a source of food for fish and plankton. So it keeps the whole circular economy and that marine economy going. So that's just one example of an opportunity for investing in the ocean, and it does yield very high returns. So finally, I'd like, in the last slide, to maybe think about how there can be partnerships with the government and municipalities to think about encouraging investment in the ocean, because it is such a large and important space. I think we are all invested, both emotionally, but also financially. And when we work in partnership, we can achieve great things. So a few perhaps ideas for those of you who are in the audience who are from government, and I commend you for being a part of supporting today's event. We see things often being very, very effective. I call them soft nudges. So when governments are vocally supportive of initiatives like the Blue Bond Principles, that can be a voice that promotes that activity and crowds in the investment community and gives the investment community confidence. We can also think about China, which has been very vocal about wanting to be a green tech leader in the world. What if China were not only to say green technology leader, but green and blue technology? And here I have to point to the wonderful city of Shenzhen, which has always been known as a tech leader in China. If we could have some of that fabulous innovation and entrepreneurial energy directed toward ocean innovation, we can, I'm sure, achieve groundbreaking new opportunities. We see things in technology like growing coral in labs that can be replanted into the ecosystems and create that wonderful biodiversity, bring back our corals, all sorts of things. When we think about technology, big data being applied to mapping the ocean, tracking fish migration, and so on, that data is very valuable, and this is a place where Shenzhen could play. And then things like perhaps providing some tax opportunities, other forms of support. We know that in other areas, as an example in green energy, when governments have provided a little bit of fiscal support, the industries tend to take off. So that's another area to think about. Next would be perhaps restrictions, regulatory prohibitions on things that are bad for the oceans. Again, I commend China and its policy on electric vehicles. As soon as China said that there will be a daylight or a sunset on petrol vehicles moving to electric, all of a sudden, what did China do? Created a multi-billion-dollar electric vehicle industry just through that statement. So this is the type of thing that could be applied in the same way toward the ocean economy. And finally, we move all the way to possibly being a partner to provide financing. In the case that I mentioned where we teamed up with the World Bank provided credit support and its AAA rating to provide protection to the investors in that blue economy note that we created. Something like that where China or the municipality can lend a little bit of support to perhaps some investments would give confidence to the investment community and crowd in capital. So with that, I'll close my formal part of my presentation, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Marisa. 非常感谢啊，来自瑞士那个瑞幸集团的
Thank you, Marisa. You're really an expert in this field. Your presentation was very insightful.
Marisa not only provides us with figures and very trustworthy survey results, she also gives us the very practical recommendations on which areas we, the Chinese industry or experts or government officials can take. She mentioned about sustainable fisheries and seafood. 就是我们所谓的可持续渔业和海。
The sustainable fishery and seafood. We all know that the salmon, lobster, and shrimps, these food are hot topics recently, but they are big market.
Especially the wind sector. 我们说的是海上能源 and clean ocean data. We all know that the data or the information competition or battle is very furious in today's economy. And the cleaner marine transportation, also the circular economy, 可循环经济。我们都知道现在
We all know that the circular economy and plastic waste, these are very hot topics right now, and plastic waste has triggered major pollutions in the ocean. If we can firmly implement cycle economy policies, many problems can be solved at ease.
Marisa, I impressed me very much about a point. You said that investment in marine economy couldn't just be emotional. They should also have the financial returns. Yes. 可能大家也都听到了刚刚
Maybe you have also heard that in Marisa's report, investors should not make decisions emotionally. Investors should also pay attention to ROI and be cost effective.
So, Marisa, would you please elaborate with us about kind of maybe two cases, both emotional and financially winning in investment in marine economy? 就说不仅感情上投资了，然后那个账目上面也有收益 ，and also the negative case, like without a very, how to say, thorough consideration or complete survey, bad case, it will be better or best if it can be relevant to China or especially Shenzhen. The organizers said that they hope this event, this session, this seminar can be relevant and beneficial to all of the participants. So, yes, your turn.
Yes, well, I think oftentimes the ocean starts with a bit of emotion because when you see how fragile and how dire the situation is today, unless we take action, that incites us to our emotional side to say, let me get involved. But then as investors, we must be pragmatic, and investments are only sustainable if they truly generate a return and if they are backed by good climate science and academia. So when we approach creating investment opportunities, we look to science and we do look to good research to underpin the thesis of those investments. But what we always strive for as we create these investments is to make at least a market rate of return for the given asset class. So that means if we are comparing an ocean investment to a traditional investment, they should generate the same type of return for the same type of asset class. So whether it's cash equivalent, whether it's private equity, whether it's public equities, we want to focus on a similar rate of return. And therefore, we know that that investment is sustainable over time because it will generate what the investor is looking for, which is two things. One is that financial return, and two is to create a positive outcome in the ocean. So hopefully that answered your question, but I'm happy to elaborate further if that's helpful.
Thank you very much. Okay. 你们两位有那个现在有点评吗？还是
Any comments now, or do you want to wait for a few minutes later? I'd like to say some words. She mentioned that government can play a critical role for encouraging the investment, ocean investment. I highly agree with this viewpoint. Later on, I will respond to this statement in my presentation.
Thank you very much for the government role part. Yes. Okay. Now,
you are very keen on partnering, so we would be very, very welcome to co-create, as we say.
Okay. 好。Next, let's talk with Paul Holthus. Hi, Paul. Yes. As you know, Paul is the founding president and the CEO of World Ocean Council. So today, we would like Paul to share with us about the function of his World Ocean Council, 世界海洋理事会, and what kind of international structure and process which would create and accelerate investment in blue economy. 我们需要一种怎么样的国际结构，促进或者说加速可持续蓝色经济的投资。Yes, Paul?
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here again today, and I was especially honored to be a part of the opening plenary session yesterday to really have a look at the overall blue economy in China and what the opportunities and directions are, and certainly we focused then on the leadership role that China plays in the future of the ocean, in the future of the ocean economy, and how to evolve and advance that leadership by focusing more on sustainability and being also a leader then in the sustainable blue economy. And so today, with this focus of our session on investment and wealth and growth creation in a responsible way for the ocean, it was great to have the overview from Marisa from Credit Suisse, and then leading into the explanation of the very practical and active work that they are doing. And so to respond to your question and the point here about how to accelerate and drive forward with investment in the blue economy, if we can go to the next slide, let me first say a few words about the World Ocean Council so that we can help ensure everyone is familiar with that. So at the World Ocean Council, we have the unique global business and investment organization for the blue economy. And so we bring together all of the corporate sectors that are involved in the ocean: shipping, fishing, aquaculture, offshore energy, ports, etc., tourism, as well as the legal, insurance, and especially the investment community. And so we work to bring this global business and investment community together to focus on what we call corporate ocean responsibility. And we're increasingly recognized in this role as the unique global business and investment organization for the ocean and sustainable development by United Nations agencies and others. And in particular, and I'll speak more in a few minutes about our ocean investment platform, which has been developing extremely rapidly over the last 5 or 6 years. But the overall context here is bringing together the business and finance community around a shared vision and goal of working together on ensuring we have a healthy and productive global ocean, and that the business and investment community is achieving sustainable use and implementing stewardship of that global ocean through responsible business and investment activities. And this, of course, is driven by incentives for working together, as Marisa mentioned, that good companies can do well for the ocean and do well for their businesses. And so things like access and social license are critical drivers for business considerations, creating synergies and economies of scale by developing the partnerships and coalitions. And all of this can lead to a stable and predictable operating environment. So it's a complex global ocean ecosystem, and it's a complex global ocean business and investment ecosystem. If we can go to the next slide. What we are working to do then is to bring that, as I say, all of those players in that diverse ocean business and investment ecosystem together and really focus then on what are the specific issues that are affecting the health of the ocean, the issues, the impacts that are emerging from economic activity, and what then can the investment community, what is the role of the investment community in both helping to tackle those negative issues and impacts, and on the other side of the coin, how can the investment community be a driver for change by accentuating and accelerating the role of business and innovation in moving forward with the positive role of economic activity? And some examples were mentioned already in terms of reducing pollution, on one hand, through investing in waste management, for example, and tackling the plastics issue. On the other hand, there's a positive role to play by investing in nature-based solutions and natural capital, such as mangroves and coral reef restoration. So all of these form the kind of pipeline of project opportunities that, as per the excellent research done by Credit Suisse, was shown to be deficient and lacking, that the opportunities are not there. If we can go to the next slide to talk then about what we were doing to tackle that by bringing together to really move on accelerating investment in the ocean economy and in sustainable development in the ocean, by bringing together the investment community, which is already a diverse and global set of players, bringing them together amongst themselves, but then bringing that blue investment community together to interact with the leadership companies from the variety of ocean industries that operate in this very diverse business ecosystem that's undertaking activities in the global ocean context. And thirdly, a third partner community are the enterprises, the innovators, the solution providers that are creating technological solutions to many of the challenges, and also other kinds of solutions in terms of practices and procedures and services that can help companies solve the create a structure and a process that bring those three communities together: the investors, the ocean industries, and the innovators. And what is the dynamic here is really to catalyze that interaction by bringing those three groups together, really identifying, particularly to start with from the ocean users, the challenges, the issues they have based on information and science and the outputs from other stakeholders such as the environment community and governments. What are the impacts that need to be addressed? What are the positive changes to business practices that can be undertaken to really bring forward and advance the improving of the ocean health and productivity? So that then leads to the opportunity to identify and evaluate the opportunities, and this feeds into that business investment pipeline that we've been talking about, and the need to really have that pipeline flowing with bankable projects that are meaningful in terms of their outputs for the ocean, but also viable in terms of their economic return for the investor. And so creating the synergies and economies of scale amongst the investors, the innovators, and the ocean corporate community is really what we're working to achieve here through the World Ocean Council Ocean Investment Platform. So let me just summarize by focusing on that for a few minutes. We have in the next slide outlined the key components to that work. We have just to give you a bit of background to this, we've been developing these communities for many, many years, and at the basis, the World Ocean Council, as I mentioned, is bringing together the ocean corporate community, and then more recently, over the last 5-6 years, the investment community and the innovation community. We've particularly, through this ocean investment platform overall, then been focusing on the investors the last 3 or 4 years, and we have what we had been calling an Ocean Funds Roundtable, now Ocean Investor Roundtable, and we were honored to have Marisa Zhou speak to us last month to help introduce this group of investors, ocean investors, that's coming together in that roundtable to learn more about the Credit Suisse efforts and the Ocean Engagement Fund that they've created. So really creating a community of practice around investing in the sustainable blue economy and sustainable development for the ocean economy more broadly. Secondly, we are bringing together the innovators. And so there are, in China and elsewhere, a growing number of accelerators, incubators, challenge competitions, and startup hubs that are very active and dynamic space for these brilliant, energized people, many young people around the world, many young women around the world that have great ideas on how to solve some of the challenges that are affecting the ocean. And so what we're doing through this network is bringing those entities together so that they can energize each other, and that we can have a level of coordination and synergies amongst these various initiatives as they develop around the world. And so we're creating these two networks, the investors and the innovation initiatives, to complement our already very strong global corporate business, ocean user community. And we would invite the corporate business, the ocean business community in China and in Shenzhen in particular, to get involved in the World Ocean Council. We would also invite investors in China to approach us and get involved in the Ocean Investor Roundtable, and also the innovators, and the innovation initiatives, accelerators and incubators in China and in Shenzhen to participate in this global network that's developing very rapidly. And finally, let me mention that all of this will be, and the overall goal of accelerating and scaling up good, solid investment in ocean sustainable development will be facilitated by a globally established framework that really identifies the ocean sectors, what the issues are, sort of the taxonomy of ocean sustainable development, and particularly then for the investment community, investors, with this Ocean ESG project, the third bullet there on the screen, we're working to develop the criteria, the metrics, the indicators, the measures of impact that can really provide a system which the investment community can use to really advance engaging in the ocean economy in a way that is consistent with a global approach to this. And so we have a working group from the investment community that's coming together through our ocean investment platform to develop this, what we call the Ocean ESG project, the Ocean Environment, Social, and Governance project, to really facilitate growth in ocean sustainable development investment. And so I think there's one more slide just in closing, so you have my contact information. If we can go to that next slide, and we bring that community together at the investment community, the business community, at the annual Sustainable Ocean Summit, which last year was focused especially on investment and will continue to focus on investment, and encourage the interested parties there in China to get in touch with us so that we can work together on this in the global partnership that is needed for the global ocean. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Paul. 大家也听到了啊。
Well, just now we have get information from Mr. Paul from the last slide that you can see the determination, the next meeting, especially about the World Ocean Council and all the related social information or planning development activity or some other information related in this part. If you have a great interest in this aspect, we would like to invite you to join this meeting online.
Before we go to the I would like to ask you a question. 就在我们于雅先生那个自己发言。
Well, before we move on to Mr. Yu Ya, we would like to ask the question to Mr. Yu Ya, because Mr. Yu Ya is from the China Marine Container, and you are high-end manager. So we know that in your eye or in your mind side, Mr. Yu Ya has been involved in a lot of investment in the domestic market and also offline market. We'd like to hear your opinion, such as what is your opinion for those such as the World Ocean Council, and what kind of role it played around this world stage. Well, to start with, this is a really good question, because you should see that the ocean is a big economy and ecological community, and in this community, and we enjoy a sound relationship between investors and entities. And sometimes like the private institute, and the other is like the big international institute. So whether it's like the community or is it like a small entity, you need to find like a really good goal for yourself. For the ocean, you should see that this is a really large business, but how large it is, you are going to get like a market section that fits perfectly. So you need to make sure your good understanding for this industry can help you to learn more about the ocean, and so that in the end you will find the investment project you like. Thank you so much, Mr. Yu Ya.
Marisa, would you like to say something? Just comment on Paul's remarks.
Certainly. Our view, as I mentioned, is that collaboration is a big part of the future to success. And we have so many opportunities when we bring different actors together to put the best minds to the topic, whether it's identifying the places where opportunity exists, whether it is bringing different types of capital together, whether it's creating those frameworks and structures. So I commend what Paul is doing, because in these very, very big systemic global issues, I think we only really have a chance of solving them in a meaningful way if we collaborate together.
Thank you very much. 好，因为时间关系，我
In the interest of time, would like to invite Mr. Yu Ya to give us introduction. Well, just now already mentioned that Mr. Yu Ya is a vice president from the China National Marine Container, and he's also a senior and seasoned expert. Would like to invite Mr. Yu Ya to give us introduction about how to combine those investment opportunity in this expertise industry. Now, Mr. Yu Ya would like to give the floor to. Well, to start with, you can see that today we're going to hold this meeting in Shenzhen. That's what we'd like to use Shenzhen as a good example. So you can see that there are two pictures I'll show you in this slide. One is 300 kilometers away from Shenzhen. We have the second test field for the combustible ice, and I'm the first supervisor for this digging field. You can see that this is really important. The benchmark it has indicated that right now we have to move on to the important stage, and for the combustible ice is also important resources. And you can see that for the second picture is in the Yellow Sea, and also this is an offshore solid rocket launch this year. And so actually since last year, you can see this is the first time for this year for commercial launching. So this also gives us really important information that right now China will going to pace up in this field, especially speaking about oceanic activity. Against the background of 5G, we're going to have the better ocean development and also investment in this part. This is definitely a totally different technology background. So in the area of digitalization, the ocean economy are going to get a better profitability. And now you can see that speaking about the marine engineering and the marine industry compared with Singapore and Korea, we can have a comparison. We got our upper side, but of course, you already recognize that China is a latecomer, so we are still in the developing process. But that's why how to give full play to your advantage is something you need to think about. The other thing is speaking about marine development. Well, put it in the true case, you can see that we enjoy that 4-decade history that China has given a really great attention to the South China Sea development, and especially in the past 1 decade, we really took off. And we started with shipbuilding, and later move on to the machine engineering. And we also mentioned that the shipbuilding and also the marine engineering take a really important positions in our strategic development. We have picked them almost in the first. Give it almost a first line importance, and also we need to first put it in an important part of the national strategy, so that we are going to incentivize all these resources in China and pour them into this industry. The other thing you need to consider is how to use the Chinese own market, capitalize our own resources to facilitate this industry development, to make sure it's our own home field. And also you need to consider that how to open it to the international stage, and with our innovative activities to further facilitate the investment opportunities. The other thing is how to consider to combine the Chinese market with the international market to trigger the double cycle, so that in the end you can see the development activity is not only sustainable but also profitable. And also this is like a long-term ecosystem. You need to consider that how to develop this common and the mutually shared ecosystem. You need to consider the pace and framework, and also within this structure, which kind of role we play, and also in this process, in different stage, what kind of features stand out, and is there any part you need to pay attention to?
So the topic of my presentation is that Shenzhen is the bridgehead of South China Sea. South China Sea accounts for over 2 million square kilometers of this Bay Area. And Shenzhen is the largest city in this Bay Area and the most innovative city in China and the most dynamic city of manufacturing and also a financial hub and investment center. So how to give full play to Shenzhen's incumbent advantages to exploit South China Sea. These are the things we should consider. So there are two ocean industrial chains in Shenzhen. The first one is the R&D design of equipment, construction and supporting industries, including the IT industry. They can be of great support to the ocean economy. And the second industrial chain is from equipment manufacturing to construction and to the ancillary services. For example, to exploit South China Sea in Lingshui and in Liwan Bay and in major city, we have specific projects there, and when there is a project, they need technical support because they are engaged in highly challenging work. They need great support both from technical perspective and from a resources perspective. So that's why we need to foster joint strength to develop ocean. And Shenzhen as an innovative city, and also Shenzhen intends to be an international oceanic-centric city. So how to combine these two initiatives to give full play to the advantages of this city? So President Xi commented that we shall leverage our technological strength to develop South China Sea. So that's why I approach this issue from these two industrial chains in order to seek our long-term value and objectives. So just now, the madam has made a very good point that the investment projects in the blue economy is few and far between. So I have 4 keywords for you. Untangling the demand of blue economy. And how to untangle the demand? I think we can think about it from these two industrial chains. As long as the development projects are secure, they will have financing needs, and we should actively seek matching investors or investment institutions to match the capital needs of those projects. That's point number 1. And second, in the manufacturing industrial chain, there are many demand on equipment and manufacturing. And on our drilling platform, we have over 1,000 systems, and we have invested over $700 million on the drilling platform. So it includes many modules and systems, and many systems have a very high investment value. For example, the transmission sensors, among others. Again, for investors, investment is something that you should learn project by project gradually. We tend to be very reasonable when we make investment, but when we invest in these specific projects, we should also calculate ROI and manage the risks. That might be a good model for investors that have just in contact with this sector. I think the prerequisite for creating wealth is to create value by investment. So as long as we pay attention to this sector, can we have a clearer idea of how to make our investment in this field and how to create value? This slide, our cooperation with financial institutions are long-term. And the first financial institution we have collaborated is Ping An Insurance. So when we get started, no financial institutions can provide insurance for us. We had our insurance in Singapore and in overseas countries, while Ping An Insurance is the only domestic insurer that worked with us at that time. Ping An Insurance has a big data support, and after following this project for a long time, this company has a greater understanding of this project. So this is the advantage of long-term tracking and investing. That's point number one. Secondly, ocean development should be combined with national strategic plans. Just now, one panelist mentioned we should better interact with the government. Oceanic development includes production and other sectors, many other sectors. It's an ecosystem. It involves many stakeholders. So we must combine with the national strategic initiatives and national investment programs. For example, our Yamar project in Russia. Only in this way can our project be truly dynamic and can our investment be truly stable. And point number three, we should pay attention to the two cycles, the global cycles. Initially, China's ocean development has not been fully opened, but in Brazil, Norway, and the South America projects, we observed their project progress and we have learned from them. Investment-wise, there might be more niche markets in the future. Resource market, equipment market, innovation market. Under this umbrella, in this ecosystem, there are many different investment opportunities, and we should deploy different investment strategies accordingly. My point number five, the city Shenzhen. I have mentioned that Shenzhen is the bridgehead of South China exploration. It's not only the technical hub, but can also serve as a financial hub to exploit South China Sea. We need financial market, securities, and fiscal and legal support. So Shenzhen, together with Belt and Road Initiative and South China Sea exploitation, the financial industry in this city is necessary for ocean development. Shenzhen also provide many R&D and design initiatives and support. Thank you very much, Mr. Yu. I think you have echoed Marisa's comments.
Is really big, and there do exist opportunities that the investors can have quite significant profits. 前景很好，而且的确存在一些项目。
Indeed, there are many projects that can yield high ROI for investors. In addition, Mr. Yu also mentioned from a geopolitical perspective and from other perspectives, he has shared with us that if you're interested in this field, be it R&D or academic, we must be aligned with international or national strategic plans. as long as you can seize the trend and follow this right direction, you will emerge victorious because you have worked hard for it. And there will be good returns, or there will be smart investment. He has also mentioned we should make investments step by step. For big companies, they take a long time to learn how to make investment. And I saw you are raising the microphone. Please proceed. I really agree with your opinions, Mr. Yu. We should provide financial support following these two industrial chains because the nature of finance is a service, is the blood of any industrial development. I agree with you completely. And second, you mentioned to form a financial ecosystem for this industry. I agree with you because the banks' credit loans are not the only solution, but there should be a portfolio of financial solutions based on how much risks they can bear. I really agree with this viewpoint. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. In fact, we intended to play a recorded video from a Norwegian expert, but conscious of time, our forum will have to end by 10. So I'd like to ask our panelists. I'd like to ask Mr. Zhou, the partner of a China Headquarters Dentons law firm, to talk about the Chinese private enterprises in the ocean sector, their status quo. So as a legal expert, he'd like to share with us the status quo and his comments and recommendations and good ideas to share with us. The floor is yours. Thank you. So unlike Mr. Yu, you are from a major SOE. So let me, before I systematically respond to the question, I'd like to say a few extra words. You have very rightly touched upon a key point, the deficiencies and gaps in the ocean economy. But I'd like to touch upon this topic from two viewpoints. The first one is the status quo of small and medium-sized private enterprises in the ocean sector, their financing status quo. Objectively speaking, I think Chinese government and Chinese SOEs and credit loans are doing quite good. In 2018, these DRC and Central Bank and SDRC, at that time the security supervising body has not been merged with the security supervising body, but at that time they have jointly released a guideline on the financing policies to help small and medium-sized enterprises in the ocean sector to raise funds. So if you pay attention to this industry, this document is very important. It mentioned the financial guidelines and oceanic ownership evaluations and how to convert oceanic ownership to be swamped into a mortgage-based financing product. And again, in 2018, the National Ocean Authority has released 14 opinions to support guided funds to support agriculture. And also in 2018, China's Natural Resource Ministry has also released a document to support the development of this industry. And in both guidelines, they propose to support this industry with over 100 billion RMB. So indeed, there are capital support from the government, from public capital. And also starting from 2014 or 2015, Shenzhen Stock Exchange has on multiple occasions launched roadshows for medium and small-sized enterprises to raise funds and to be accessed by the investors.
Because we believe that enterprises involved in the blue economy is really large in quantity. A lot of enterprises will want to help. So you can see that from the microeconomy policy, several years ago, you can see that if the fundraising is not so positive in this country, sometimes the money has not been guided to the area you want. So you can see that it's not in good shape or developed in the way we like. Or perhaps you have some reason it's like that perhaps the project we provide to you is not up to the standard, kind of below the par. And generally speaking, this is a micro economy aspect. And as for other reasons, Mr. Yu and other panelists mentioned, that blue economy and the blue industry sounds like alien to a lot of the people and also the investors. People believe that it's more like the people involved closely in the industry who are more familiar with the industry. Well, for the other public, perhaps they enjoy the product and service from the ocean industry, but they don't know too much that this is from the production chain of the blue economy. So that's why I think this is the restrictions. And from the micro aspect, you can see it has something to do with such as like some shortcomings of the SME, and because sometimes they started business with themselves and they has faced a lot of barriers in the development path later. All those things and has led to the situation that especially for those private company, they are facing an even more bleak financing situation. For our own teams, we are following a lot of enterprises and we have done intensive research in the past several years. And there are several things we'd like to share with you. I could not agree with the first panelist more, and at that time he's mentioned. So we believe that the government should play the role. According to myself, we need to build like all-round capital supply way, and it should be like this three-dimensional. First is the government guiding, and Mr. Yu has mentioned this aspect. The other is like the entity investment, and the third is like the social capital actively engagement. Only by pull together the three forces can we finally get a robusting situation mentioned by Mr. Yu. The government guidance is really important because for a mature industry, government guidance is always a top priority. And we noticed that two scholars from the Peking University, one is Lin Yifu, the other is Zhang Weiying. They have a really famous dispute about the government policy to the support to the industry. And Lin Yifu is in favor of it, while the other scholar go against it. So according to me, I believe that you definitely need to get the support from government and policy aid, because especially regarded as a strategic industry in the future, you're going to use it to give the hope to the whole country. You should get the support from the government. If it is not the government who take the first step, it will be difficult for others to follow. The other thing is that for the capital supply aspect is that the enterprises, they should not always watch and see. They need to invest by themselves. They should not only have a really good operation revenue, but they should be all in. Has provided consulting service for a lot of enterprises. I always give them same opinion. It's not like you enjoy the high life, such as you live in the villa, but you invest little in this industry. The third thing is about the social capital. We notice that sometimes for those investors, they are really visioned, and if we got those like a triangle or the three-layer investment framework, I think it will be a really conducive for the futures. The other things like for the financial supply products, you can find it in elaborate frameworks, especially in the government structures, and sometimes they got like the industry fund, they got like the PPP, and also like the credit from the bank products, etc. You got all kind of the financial products, and for the enterprises, you can also find similar products, and you can find more and more the same kind of products in the social capitals. And in our research, I find at least two aspects I want to share with you. The first is like we got like the dozens of those pilot zone of the blue economy. One is in Fuzhou, and it is called one town called the Lianjiang town in Fuzhou areas. I paid visit to this area myself. It's famous it's famous for the kelp, and because like you have a really high requirement for the water quality, etc. So that's why for the developer they're thinking perhaps they can develop the offshore farms for kelps. So that's why the Lianjiang government is thinking that perhaps we can do something to those near sea areas, perhaps for the ocean resources. We can pack them and then invite those evaluation structures, and then they give you a fee, and then you put them in the balance sheet, and later you can, when you apply the loan to banks, you can combine them together. This is not only innovative measures, it's not like individual cases. According to me, and as far as according to my knowledge, I noticed like right now that has been promoted to other pilot areas in China, and in Norway right now they have securitized all these different resources. So that's why we'll consider that whether you should design all the security products according to the resources is a really important matter to think. And the one benchmark about understanding this part is that perhaps whether you can get like widely recognized financial product related to the blue economy. So that's why we can combine the financial institutes, the financial industry together with the ocean industry. Well, according to Mr. Yu, there's one thing I'd like to respond. So for any product to have a securitized, first you need to get a stable value, and which should last, and that's how you can securitization those kind of products. And there's another case we'd like to share with you. Well, I have to remind you that because we still have the time limits. Well, how about I keep it within our schedule? Well, there's one product I have mentioned to a lot of high-end enterprises. If you got those IP patents, which are already authorized to you, perhaps you can pack them in those IBM. Right now in Shenzhen, you can find this product, and the first order has been made, and in Shenzhen. The third thing I would like to mention to you is like the kind of smooth channel between enterprises and capital, which has been mentioned by Mr. Yu, because for the public and also the other investment institutes, they don't know a lot of those industries, so that's why we need to set your own stage and promote your product to the public so that they will know more, and then would like to invest the money in this project. The other thing is about those sound, solid government enterprises governance, because speaking about the rules and also the other thing you can follow, so you can see some precedented cases, because in the past we got like the poverty-stricken cases. We're going to give you some support from different institutes, and if the government believe that this is of the great strategic meaning, and they're going to give you some aids and help in this part. They are those suggestions I can give you. Thank you so much, our moderator, and thank you, Mr. Zhou. And now we'd like to invite our speakers, our staff, to play one video from the Norway panelist, Madam Marisa's video.
音乐是不是切错了？现在应该是他那个发言，那个声音。不好意思啊，好像出现了技术故障。
Due to some technical issue.
因为解决了吗？在没有解决之前
Well, before we sort through the technical issue, I'd like to ask a question to Mr. Zhou. Oh. Please use microphone. Well, for this question, I would like to invite Mr. Zhou to prepare it first and to have a sort through this technical issue.
Sorry, there is a technical problem, Marisa and Paul, so we couldn't now watch the video by Maren. But I would like you both, because just now 2 Chinese guests have expressed their viewpoints, and from 2 different fields. So first of all, I'd like to have Marisa and Paul to comment and what you think of their, presentations. Yes, Marisa first.
I certainly and wholeheartedly agree with both presenters. This idea that if you can take sectors, focus on those sectors, incite a combination of putting legal infrastructure in place, putting political support in place, that is usually the catalyst that ignites the opportunity and then attracts the investment community. So without going into the specifics of each speaker, I think the general concept was this idea that if you put the infrastructure and the incentives in place, that then you can scale these industries. And the only thing I would also touch on is a little bit that our last speaker spoke about. Perhaps in general society, this blue economy might be a bit of a mystery. It's not very well known. And I often say that the first step in scaling any market is to create awareness and a shared understanding. So I do think forums like this, where we can raise the issues, talk about what possible solutions there might be, identify where the gaps are, that's the first step in trying to mobilize a market.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
Yeah, thank you. And it's great to have this, what we have on stage here with representation from the ocean user community and from the investment community that's interested in the ocean economy. And I think the exchange of information here and the dynamic is really representative of what is playing out around the world, and what we've been referring to here, and certainly what we've been working on at the World Ocean Council, is to really bring the ocean user community together with the investment community to see where there's common interest and opportunity, and helping both of those entities, particularly the private sector investment community, along with the private sector ocean use community, help drive the, identify the needs and drive the government policy developments that are necessary to really to facilitate more active investment through a process that's also identified the key priorities, and those priorities may also come from the government, or as we talked a bit about earlier, from external stakeholders. But at the core of this, the private sector has such an essential role to play, both on the investment and the business side. So creating this interchange to identify priorities for investment, and then identify and articulate the investment vehicles and develop the specific projects is really the way to go. And particularly, it's what's necessary, and particularly then to focus on specific issues. And so to have, for example, our 2 panelists that are on stage right now then speaking about specific shipping industry impacts or constraints to being more sustainable, and helping the investment community better understand that, and really then design the very targeted investment efforts to develop a technology, implement and deploy, test a solution, etc. This is where the exciting and important work is that needs to be done, and it's great to see that developing so rapidly in China, which again can lead the world on these in these efforts.
Okay, thank you, Paul. 在我最后那个总结。
Well, before I give you a conclusion, I'd like to invite Mr. Zhou to give you to help us to answer the questions. Well, just now this lady, perhaps you didn't give us a really clear description of your question. Would you mind to make it simple? Well, Speaking about the transportation of the ocean shipping, would like to know that whether there are some protections we need to follow. Because speaking about the maritime law, do you think there are some latest optimization to this? Well, I think this is not the question I can answer because I mainly focus on the Chinese enterprises financing rules and also measures. I would like to invite Mr. Paul to answer the question for us. Would you mind to answer this question for us? Well, I think they have something to do with the domestic law and regulation, and just as you has mentioned, it should be focused on the Hainan area in China. So that's why I think perhaps it not fits well with Mr. Po's background, and also in the interest of time, we can not talk anymore because we know that the time control is an important issue and also rules you should follow. Well, how that I summarize everything in short times. So today's in our panel, there are two keywords I would like to share with you. One is emotional, the other is rational.
Our experts' remarks. 为什么我讲要 emotional? Because
why I mention emotional first? Because
investment profits from marine economy isn't easy money anymore. 或许它曾经赚钱很容易，但是现在它一定是
perhaps in the past it's easy to make money, but right now
它肯定不是那个热钱涌入。
It's not like easy to make the money like the piece of cake. So that's why whether it's the government or institutes, you need to be emotional in this part.
这是第一点。第二点。
The second thing we'd like to share with you is like you definitely want the investment returns, but you need to be rational in this part, whether it's like from whether our ocean consoles or whether it's like the additive instruments. Mr. Zhou, Mr. Yu has mentioned that what kind of investment you have, you need to be cautious in this part.
We should think about the macro and micro points and all the factors that will play in this decision.
Emotional and rational. Can we really realize the theme of our session, like the creation of wealth and growth in a responsible way?
Yes.
Yes. Creating wealth in a responsible way. So a responsible way is to consider the marine law, right? Thank you. I will pass over your question to the organizer. So let me say something in response. You can prepare a written material to me, and I can find the best maritime law lawyer to answer your question. Okay, how about, do you want to say something, Mr. Yu? More comprehensive development. A international oceanic centric hub. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye bye. 好，那我们这一场就到这里了啊。
This forum is adjourned. Let's take a group photo together.